Breaking news, people. My local MP, Rebecca Long-Bailey, has just been sacked from the shadow cabinet. This was brought to me by Asdasia, one of my longtime friends and subscribers on Facebook. Unfortunately, she is still my MP. She was not sacked from her post as MP, so there will be no by-election and I won't be able to vote her out. But hey, you know what? At the very least, she's no longer going to be in the shadow cabinet, and if Labour were to win, that's one less Corbynite in the cabinet, even though there's not much of a difference between the Corbynites and the Starmer supporters, but hey, you know, what gives? So why was she sacked in the first place? This seems to be rather abrupt and unexpected. Well, it's that old spectre, anti-Semitism. Now, it's nothing that she actually said herself. In fact, it's something that other people said, but because she posted this thing, it was seen as an endorsement from what I can tell reading through the lines. So on Twitter, Rebecca Long-Bailey posted this interview, and this interview was an interview of somebody called Maxine Peake. Now, who is Maxine Peake? She's an actress. She's mainly known for TV appearances and some local films. She's not big all around the world, she's more well known in the UK, and she's from the same area as I am. Unfortunately, she's a rabid leftist, and she's a big Corbynite supporter. She was also in one of the worst films of 2018, Peterloo, where the director, Mike Leigh, was trying to pass it off as some kind of socialist thing, like this is their thing, this is their episode, but actually it was a classical liberal protest, Peterloo, but hey, whatever. I did not appreciate them trying to appropriate my history, but whatever. But anyway, in the interview in The Independent that Miss Long-Bailey posted on Twitter, this is what Maxine Peake says in response to the George Floyd shootings. Born in Bolton to a lorry driver father and care worker mother, Peake is strident and expressive. If religion wasn't anathema to her, she'd be perfect in the pulpit. Systemic racism is a global issue, she adds. The tactics used by the police in America, kneeling on George Floyd's neck, that was learnt from seminars with Israeli secret services. A spokesperson for the Israeli police has denied this, stating that there is no tactic or protocol that calls to put pressure on the neck or airway.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
Now, Rebecca Long-Bailey called Maxine Peake in this tweet an absolute diamond. Personally, I find her to be not so much a diamond, more nails on a chalkboard, but that's just my opinion. Especially as within the first 10 minutes, she's calling for the destruction of capitalism, you know, the very thing that allows her to be a successful actress. But hey, you know, go figure. In the communist revolution, she will still have her job as an actress. She will get to do all the things she still gets to do. It's not like she might potentially be shot first for being part of the intelligentsia and the cultural elite. But of course, Rebecca Long-Bailey retweeted this article not to endorse everything, but because there was a thrust to her argument that should stay in the Labour Party. Communism, obviously. But clearly that wasn't enough for Keir Starmer. Anything that could be construed as anti-Semitic has to be purged from the Labour Party because he's trying to do a rebuild. And the Labour Party does have a massive anti-Semitism problem. How many times have we seen throughout all the years, especially when Corbyn became the leader of the party, instances of anti-Semitism? Corbyn himself, for example, supports Hamas, Iran. He wrote an introduction to a famous J.A. Hobson book about imperialism, where there are a lot of anti-Semitic arguments within said book, but apparently he was ignorant of such arguments, which I find hard to believe, because why would you write an introduction to a book you've never read? Keir Starmer can't afford any more controversies when it comes to anti-Semitism, especially since in a recent report, Labour has been found to be a dysfunctional, toxic culture. His party is reeling, it is dying. Which is good for me, but bad for him. The Jewish Labour movement was obviously welcoming of this because they don't like the fact that anti-Semitism is in the party as, well, being Jews. But of course, not everybody was happy. Matt Zarb-Cousin, who was Corbyn's media advisor, said, apparently, we're now more willing to sack our own frontbenchers than call for the sacking of government frontbenchers. And Rebecca Long-Bailey has also released a statement on Twitter. 1. Today, I retweeted an interview that my constituent and stalwart Labour Party supporter Maxine Peake gave to The Independent. Its main thrust was anger with the Conservative government's handling of the current emergency and a call for Labour Party unity. These are sentiments shared by everyone in our movement and millions of people in our country. I learned that many people were concerned by references to international sharing of training and restraint techniques between police and security forces. In no way was my retweet an intention to endorse every part of that article. I wished to acknowledge these concerns and duly issued a clarification of my retweet with the wording agreed in advance by the Labour Party's leader's office. But after posting, I was subsequently instructed to take both this agreed clarification and my original retweet down. I could not do this in good conscience without the issuing of a press statement of clarification. I had asked to discuss these matters with Keir before agreeing what further action to take, but sadly, he had already made his decision. I am proud of the policies we have developed within the party, from our green industrial revolution to a national education service, and I will never stop working for the change our communities need to see. I am clear that I shall continue to support the Labour Party in Parliament under Keir Starmer's leadership, to represent the people of Salford and Eccles, work towards a more equal, peaceful and sustainable world. Communism and anti-Semitism is surely one way to bring about a more equal and peaceful, sustainable world, Rebecca. I'm sure it will. I'm sure I'm not the only one who noticed she's not exactly happy about being sacked. I couldn't help but at least have some barbs in there, as Keir had already made his decision. Somebody's not happy about being caught. But here is the question, guys. Was what Maxine Peake said anti-Semitic? Let me just say this. I've actually heard this from somewhere on Twitter, that it was an Israeli technique to put your knee on somebody's neck like that. But of course it's unsubstantiated, and apparently Israeli police, or at the very least their defence forces, don't practice that technique. Does that make it anti-Semitic? Well, it must come from an area where there is some kind of hatred for Israel, or at the very least a scorn for them, a dislike. Because if it's one thing I know about a lot of British leftists, particularly socialists and communists, is that if it's Israel, you get this kind of attitude. Well, of course it was Israel. Of course Israel would do such a thing. That apartheid state, that oppressive state that harms the rights of Palestinian Muslims. Of course the Israel lobby were the ones promoting these techniques to attack black Americans in America. Of course it was Israel. Now maybe that does come from an anti-Semitic place, because it comes from Marx. Marx was anti-Semitic. A lot of leftists throughout the years have been. Because Jews have been, for a very long time, to these people, a symbol of capitalism, a symbol of wealth, of exploitation, etc., etc. You do get the use of them as part of the progressive stack to attack right-wingers, because they like to promote the myth that the National Socialist Party was right-wing, to attack right-wingers, to say that right-wingers are anti-Semitic, when anti-Semitism technically is neither left or right-wing in terms of being a problem, but it's very clear in more recent years that it is still primarily a left-wing issue. This is the attitude that a lot of them have, and which to me just seems like it's some kind of metaphor, some kind of euphemism for Jews. It's just that leftists, unlike a lot of, say, racist right-wingers, quote-unquote, are more self-aware of how bad it sounds, so they coat it in language like that. So it possibly did come from an anti-Semitic place. Now, I'm actually surprised that she's... Now, does this mean that Rebecca Long-Bailey was also endorsing this, or is she just stupid and didn't realise it? Because she obviously read the interview and called her a diamond. I find it hard to believe that Rebecca Long-Bailey didn't read the article properly and only noticed this afterwards when she had to check it with her PR. It's pretty obvious that she didn't care that Maxine Peake said such things until it was pointed out. Sure, she can disagree with elements of the article, but she called her an absolute diamond. That implies that she agrees with everything, because she's complimenting someone to such a large degree, especially somebody who potentially could be a racist. She didn't write, I don't agree with everything in here, like for example the Israeli police thing, but Maxine Peake is a credit to the Labour movement. Obviously that doesn't sound good either, but at the very least it shows that Rebecca Long-Bailey doesn't agree with her on the issue in regards to the JQ. But if I was Keir Starmer, if I was the Labour leader, if I'm trying to stamp this problem out of the party, I can't afford any controversies, as I said before. So I think he was justified in sacking her, because she should have known better. A zero-tolerance approach to anything like that has to be done until the controversy either dies or you've rooted out the problem. And perhaps not only that, he was waiting for an opportunity to purge a member of the Corbynite faction from his shadow cabinet, because she's not that good. She's only an MP because people in this area only vote because she's red. That's literally it. I can't imagine why anybody around here would ever vote for such a person. She's terrible. There's nothing here that suggests she deserves to be the MP of Salford and Eccles. Yeah, I do believe that this is mainly to get rid of the Corbynite faction from within the Labour Party, but also part of a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism, because Keir can't afford these controversies. I have zero sympathy for Rebecca Long-Bailey. I have zero respect for Maxine Peake, because the thing is, I can't see how good this is, not only for relations between Jews and non-Jews in the UK, but even in Manchester, because I don't live that far away from the Jewish community itself. They won't be happy seeing that there is an MP right next door to them who is essentially promoting anti-Semitism, whether she means to or not. Labour wants their votes, because their current MP is an independent, and he left the Labour Party because of the anti-Semitism issue. Well, stuff like this isn't going to make the people happy. I think they're going to be really, really unhappy about such things. But anyway, this is a breaking news story from me. I'm going to end it here. Then I can release the actual video that I wanted to release maybe an hour or two later from here. Rebecca Long-Bailey deserves to be sacked, and Maxine Peake deserves the helicopter. I'll see you later, guys.